A man actually won $50,000 because his neighbor's dog barked at 6:47 a.m. every Tuesday. But that's not even close to the most absurd neighbor lawsuit that's ever succeeded in court. What could possibly be more ridiculous than getting rich off a barking dog? 1. Two neighbors turned grass, cutting into a courtroom drama. One homeowner accidentally mowed 1 inch into his neighbor's yard during routine lawn care. The neighbor exploded with rage, claiming property damage from grass clippings scattered on his driveway. Both sides hired lawyers and demanded restraining orders against each other. The absurd dispute required court-ordered mediation to resolve. 2. A backyard koi pond sparked an all-out neighborhood war when part of it crossed the property line. The offended neighbor demanded immediate removal of the entire pond structure. Instead of complying, the pond owner installed an obscene lawn statue facing his neighbor's house. Hurt feelings escalated into a lawsuit for emotional distress. The settlement required both statue removal and a written apology. 3. Early morning dog barking turned a sleep-deprived neighbor into a courtroom warrior. The plaintiff sued for noise pollution, claiming emotional trauma from months of lost sleep. He demanded either complete silence from the dog or substantial monetary damages for his suffering. The case dragged through local courts for months. Surprisingly, the law sided with the dog's owner in the end. 4. An 8 p.m. laundry session became grounds for a neighbor dispute that reached court. The complainant argued that evening washing machine noise constituted unreasonable disruption of his peaceful nights. The landlord got dragged into the messy fight between tenants. The plaintiff sought a complete ban on after-dinner laundry activities. The judge dismissed the entire case as utterly petty and frivolous. 5. Christmas lights became a legal battleground when one neighbor's display apparently endangered local traffic safety. The complainant filed for a temporary restraining order against the festive decorations. He claimed the blinking lights caused him emotional harm and sleepless nights. The lawsuit demanded immediate removal of all holiday displays. Fortunately, the city ruled in favor of free expression and seasonal joy. 6. Kids playing soccer triggered a lawsuit when their ball repeatedly landed in a neighbor's prized garden. The angry homeowner sued for trespassing and garden damage caused by the wayward ball. He claimed the children intentionally harassed him with their outdoor play activities. His bizarre demand included creating a child-free buffer zone around his property. The judge wisely allowed the kids to continue playing. 7. A backyard rooster's pre-dawn crowing became evidence in a noise complaint lawsuit. The sleep-deprived neighbor meticulously recorded the rooster sounds to submit as legal evidence. He claimed the bird completely ruined his morning peace and demanded removal. The lawsuit sought both rooster relocation and financial damages for lost sleep. The judge ruled the rooster could stay with reasonable sound limits. 8. Two neighbors went to war over a property line marker that may or may not have existed. One accused the other of stealing 2 entire feet of land by building a fence in the wrong spot. The lawsuit demanded complete fence removal plus damages for trespass and illegal construction. Both sides hired surveyors who disagreed with each other. Eventually, a third survey settled everything, but the legal bills cost more than the disputed land was worth. 9. A patio candle enthusiast found themselves in court because their vanilla-scented candles drifted next door. The neighbor claimed severe headaches and allergic reactions from the smell. They sued for public nuisance and demanded immediate cessation of all candle use. Mediation resulted in restricted candle hours and scent-free zones. Neither party felt satisfied with the compromise. The candle lover switched to unscented options, muttering about constitutional rights to pleasant aromas. 10. Pink plastic flamingos became the center of a heated legal battle when they appeared on a front lawn. The neighbors claimed these decorative birds constituted property defacement and caused them emotional distress. They sued for vandalism charges and monetary damages for their suffering. The court found absolutely no real damage from plastic lawn ornaments. Those flamingos became a local tourist attraction, with people driving by just to see the infamous birds that sparked a lawsuit. 11. A leaf blower dispute escalated when one neighbor deliberately blew autumn leaves directly into their enemy's pristine driveway. The lawsuit claimed harassment and demanded reimbursement for cleanup costs. One party actually requested a formal written apology letter as part of their demands. The court dismissed the case due to lack of concrete evidence of intentional malice. However, the underlying tension between these neighbors remained unresolved, creating an atmosphere of perpetual suburban warfare. 12. Movie night popcorn became grounds for litigation when the buttery aroma allegedly permeated the neighbor's entire home. They filed suit seeking a complete ban on late-night popcorn making, claiming the smell was unbearable and intrusive. The judge ruled that normal food odors weren't legally excessive or harmful to anyone's well-being. Both neighbors began actively avoiding each other afterward. The popcorn lover installed better kitchen ventilation, though they maintained their right to snack freely. 13. Swimming pool splashes triggered a lawsuit when children's water play sent droplets over a shared fence line. The neighbor claimed property damage from water spots and cited water waste as an environmental concern. They sought financial compensation for stress-related expenses and additional laundry costs from wet outdoor furniture. The judge encouraged direct communication instead of courtroom drama. A taller pool fence was eventually installed, though the kids' laughter still carried over the barrier on summer afternoons. 14. High-heeled shoes became courtroom evidence when an upstairs neighbor's footsteps prompted a noise complaint lawsuit. The complainant submitted actual sound recordings as proof of intolerable disturbance from daily walking. They requested both eviction of their neighbor and substantial monetary damages for sleep disruption. The case was ultimately dismissed due to insufficient evidence of unreasonable noise levels. The shoe wearer began wearing slippers indoors, though they questioned whether normal walking had truly become a legal offense. 15. Drones used to be toys for hobbyists and photographers. Now they're causing neighbor wars that end up in courtrooms. One neighbor decided their drone needed to explore the entire neighborhood, including the airspace above someone else's backyard. The person below wasn't thrilled about having a flying robot with a camera hovering over their private space. Privacy invasion became the battle cry. 16. Backyard chickens sound charming until they start wandering into the wrong yard. These feathered trespassers left droppings everywhere and scattered feathers like confetti. The neighbor claimed health risks from the mess and demanded complete removal of the flock. But here's the twist. The court allowed the chickens to stay. They just needed a fence to keep them home. The chicken owners wanted an apology too. 17. Art takes many forms, but this neighbor chose the middle finger as their medium. A statue pointing directly at the enemy's house became the centerpiece of their yard. The offended party sued for emotional distress, claiming the gesture ruined their daily peace. The court had other ideas, though. They ruled it was artistic expression, protected speech. The statue became a neighborhood landmark, attracting curious visitors from blocks away. 18. Trees don't respect property lines, and this particular tree became a major problem. Its branches hung over the fence, dropping leaves constantly into the neighbor's pristine yard. The cleanup costs piled up, leading to a lawsuit claiming branch trespass as actual property invasion. The judge ordered trimming, but refused to award money. Both neighbors responded by planting new trees defensively, creating an escalating green wall between their homes. 19. Someone kept knocking down the same mailbox repeatedly, turning mail delivery into a neighborhood mystery. The frustrated owner filed police reports and launched a personal lawsuit against unknown saboteurs. They claimed this was a targeted campaign of destruction against their property. The settlement required a completely new mailbox design built to withstand whatever was happening. But the suspicion between neighbors never really went away. 20. Weekend parties with loud music sparked multiple noise complaints that eventually became a full lawsuit. The neighbor demanded $5,000 in damages, plus a complete party ban on the property. Sound meter readings were submitted as evidence in court proceedings. The city measured everything and found the volume didn't actually exceed legal limits. Shortly after the ruling, the party-throwing neighbors decided to move away from the area entirely. 21. Fruit trees are lovely until their produce starts falling onto your neighbor's car. The constant dropping created what the car owner called a perpetual nuisance that damaged their vehicle's paint job. They filed for complete tree removal plus cash compensation for repairs. The judge allowed trimming of overhanging branches but refused removal of the entire tree. In an odd twist, both neighbors started exchanging fruit baskets, though grudgingly and with obvious tension. 22. Margaret installed a new bedroom window that faced directly into her neighbor's kitchen. Perfect view of their morning coffee routine, evening dinner prep, and late-night snacking habits. The neighbors felt like zoo animals on display. They sued Margaret, claiming she was conducting constant surveillance and violating their privacy. Margaret argued she just wanted natural light. The court found no actual law broken, but suggested compromise measures like a frosted glass or strategic curtains. 23. Bob's automatic sprinkler system had one rebellious head that sprayed water directly into his neighbor's freshly waxed driveway every Tuesday and Friday at 6 a.m. The neighbor calculated the water waste, documented the property damage, and filed a harassment lawsuit demanding $2,000 in damages. Bob called it an honest mistake. The judge recommended they work it out like adults. Bob adjusted the sprinkler angle, but the legal fees cost more than replacing the entire system would have. 24. Sarah's collection of wind chimes turned her backyard into a constant symphony of metallic tinkling. Her neighbor claimed the relentless noise disrupted his sleep, meditation, and general sanity. He measured decibel levels with a professional sound meter and filed a lawsuit demanding complete removal. Sarah argued wind chimes were peaceful and natural. The judge allowed the chimes but imposed quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. Sarah lowered the chimes to reduce wind exposure and soften their sound. 25. Every winter, Dave shoveled his driveway snow directly onto his neighbor's property line, creating a growing mountain of ice and slush. The neighbor argued this violated city snow removal ordinances and created dangerous conditions. Dave claimed he was just being efficient with his shoveling time. They battled over municipal snow disposal rules in court. The judge threw out the case, suggesting they shovel with kindness and common sense. The neighbors never spoke again, even during summer barbecue season. 26. Tom's new motion-activated floodlight pointed directly at his neighbor's bedroom window, turning midnight bathroom trips into daylight experiences. The neighbor claimed light trespassing and filed suit for lost sleep and privacy invasion. Tom insisted the light was necessary for security after a recent break-in scare. The court ordered Tom to install a directional shield on the floodlight. After the adjustment, the light still provided security without turning the neighbor's bedroom into Times Square. 27. Whiskers, the cat, treated property lines like mere suggestions, making daily tours through every yard in the neighborhood. One neighbor had enough and sued for pet trespassing, claiming emotional distress from the constant feline visits. They demanded a court-ordered ban on outdoor cat privileges. The case settled with an agreement to install a cat-proof fence. Whiskers, being a cat, completely ignored the new barriers and continued his neighborhood patrol routes as usual. 28. Gerald filled his front lawn with 47 garden gnomes of various sizes, creating what looked like a miniature fantasy village. His neighbor called it visual pollution and sued for property value reduction and aesthetic damages. Gerald argued his gnomes brought joy and whimsy to the neighborhood. The court ruled gnomes weren't offensive or legally harmful. To keep peace, Gerald repositioned his gnome army so they faced different directions, though some still seemed to be plotting neighborhood mischief. 29. Harold Mitchell loved his Saturday morning barbecue ritual. Every weekend, without fail, he'd fire up his smoker at 7 a.m. sharp. The aromatic clouds of hickory and mesquite would drift lazily across his backyard, creating what he considered pure heaven. His neighbor, Janet Peterson, had a different opinion entirely. She claimed the smoke was infiltrating her home through open windows, triggering her 8-year-old son's asthma attacks and ruining her morning yoga sessions. 30. The Hendersons thought their backyard trampoline would bring joy to the neighborhood kids. Instead, it brought a lawsuit. Their next-door neighbor, Mrs. Chen, filed a complaint claiming the bouncing children could peer directly into her bedroom windows from their elevated position. She demanded immediate removal, citing privacy invasion and the constant thundering noise that disrupted her afternoon naps. The case took an unexpected turn when Mrs. Chen's own grandchildren were caught sneaking over to bounce. 31. What started as innocent gardening became a property dispute worthy of a courtroom drama. Margaret Williams decided to beautify her front walkway with massive decorative plant pots, each weighing nearly 50 pounds. The problem? She positioned them directly on the shared pathway that her neighbor, David Kumar, had used for 15 years to access his mailbox. Kumar claimed the pots created a dangerous obstacle course and violated his right-of-way. The judge ultimately sided with Kumar after reviewing old property surveys. 32. Susan Martinez thought she was being environmentally responsible by using her favorite lavender-scented fabric softener. Her neighbor, Robert Klein, disagreed completely. Klein claimed the fragrant dryer vent emissions were drifting through his kitchen window, causing severe headaches and allergic reactions. He demanded thousands in medical compensation and sought a court order banning scented laundry products. The judge ordered independent air quality testing, which found no harmful chemicals. Klein's case collapsed when experts testified that lavender was generally considered safe. 33. For 20 years, Tom Richardson had watered his prize-winning roses at exactly 5:30 a.m. every morning. His new neighbor, Jennifer Walsh, found this routine absolutely intolerable. Walsh filed a lawsuit claiming Richardson's early morning hose use created unreasonable wake-up calls that violated noise ordinances. She compared it to setting off alarm clocks in someone else's bedroom. The judge dismissed her case after determining no actual monetary damages occurred. Both neighbors eventually agreed to a 7 a.m. watering schedule compromise. 34. 8-year-old Emma built her dream treehouse with Dad's help, complete with a rope ladder and binoculars for bird watching. The neighbors, the Johnsons, saw something far more sinister in the elevated structure. They filed suit claiming the treehouse created an unauthorized surveillance platform that violated their privacy rights. The Johnsons demanded immediate removal and monetary damages for emotional distress. After reviewing the case, the judge ruled the treehouse could remain as long as it stayed below the fence line height. 35. When the city updated its pet ordinances, nobody expected chickens to become the center of a legal battle. Martha Stevens had kept 3 hens in her backyard for fresh eggs, a practice that violated the area's strict no livestock policy. Her neighbor, Frank Morrison, filed a formal complaint seeking immediate removal and fines. However, when the case went to court, lawyers discovered the outdated ordinance contained loopholes for traditional household fowl. The city council eventually revised the laws, allowing up to 4 chickens per household. 36. The neighborhood bus stop became ground zero for an epic legal battle. One homeowner claimed the yellow school bus blocked their driveway every morning, making it impossible to leave for work. They sued the school district for access denial and demanded the stop be moved 3 blocks away. The school board got dragged into court, lawyers started billing hours, and parents worried their kids would miss the bus entirely. After months of heated depositions, the judge ruled the original location was perfectly legal and reasonable. 37. Solar panels were supposed to save the planet, not destroy neighborly relationships. When one homeowner installed a shiny new solar array, their neighbor immediately complained about blinding reflections bouncing off the panels straight into their kitchen window. The glare was so intense they claimed it ruined their morning coffee routine and caused daily headaches. A lawsuit demanding complete removal followed, with expert witnesses measuring light angles and discussing photovoltaic physics. Eventually, both sides agreed to install anti-glare coating and slightly reposition the panels for peace. 38. A pet rabbit named Mr. Whiskers became the defendant in what might be the most adorable property damage case ever filed. This fluffy escape artist kept digging tunnels under the fence and creating elaborate hole systems in the neighbor's prized vegetable garden. The neighbor sued for destruction of property and emotional distress, claiming their tomatoes never recovered from the underground invasion. The judge suggested better fencing as a solution, but Mr. Whiskers continued his secret garden visits anyway, apparently unaware of his legal troubles. 39. Someone took parking enforcement into their own hands by painting a section of public curb bright red without city permission. Their neighbor immediately filed suit claiming this was illegal property modification and demanded the unauthorized paint job be removed immediately. The case hinged on whether citizens could create their own no parking zones using hardware store paint and weekend ambition. City officials confirmed the painting was completely illegal, and the court ordered the curb to be professionally repainted in regulation colors at the painter's expense. 40. Bird lovers and neat freaks collided when one neighbor started feeding pigeons in their backyard every morning. Hundreds of birds flocked to the free breakfast buffet, then spent the day leaving droppings on cars, sidewalks, and everyone's outdoor furniture. The neighbor sued for creating a public health hazard and vermin attraction, citing concerns about disease transmission and property damage. Health department officials got involved, measuring bird populations and testing surfaces. The court ordered all bird feeders removed and required permits for any future wildlife feeding activities. 41. A well-intentioned hedge trimming session turned into a full-blown legal disaster when someone got a little too enthusiastic with the electric clippers. The overzealous trimmer accidentally cut several feet into their neighbor's side of the shared hedge, creating an uneven mess that looked like a botanical haircut gone wrong. The neighbor sued for assault on greenery and demanded financial compensation for the damaged plants. The judge dismissed the case, calling it accidental gardening zeal, but both parties agreed to create a formal hedge maintenance agreement. 42. Teenage dreams of rock stardom crashed into middle-aged desires for peace and quiet when a garage band started practicing 3 times a week. The neighbors sued over the loud music, claiming it violated their right to quiet enjoyment of their property. Sound recordings were submitted as evidence, featuring guitar solos and drum beats that could be heard 2 blocks away. The judge refused to ban the band entirely, but required them to practice only during specific daytime hours and invest in some soundproofing foam for their makeshift recording studio. 43. Harold's backyard compost heap was his pride and joy. Banana peels, coffee grounds, vegetable scraps, everything went into that perfect pile of decomposing goodness. His neighbor Margaret didn't share the enthusiasm. She claimed the smell made her physically ill and filed a lawsuit for air pollution. Margaret even submitted a doctor's note as evidence of her suffering. The judge ordered Harold to move his compost farther from the fence. 44. Privacy used to mean something. But when your neighbor installs a security camera pointing directly at your backyard barbecues, things get complicated fast. Sarah's camera captured everything. Kids playing, family dinners, even her neighbor's underwear hanging on the clothesline. The lawsuit demanded immediate removal and compensation for emotional violation. The judge ordered the camera repositioned to face only Sarah's property. Both neighbors agreed to respect digital boundaries moving forward. 45. Every weekend, the Johnsons transformed their driveway into a retail empire. Garage sale after garage sale brought treasure hunters and traffic chaos to their quiet street. Well, not everyone appreciated the entrepreneurial spirit. Their neighbor claimed the recurring sales blocked street access and created a public nuisance. The city found the sales perfectly legal, but limited how often they could happen. Even the signs had to be smaller now. 46. Kids love blowing soap bubbles. They float through the air, catch sunlight, and pop with satisfying little bursts. But when Tommy's bubbles drifted into his neighbor's swimming pool, legal trouble followed. The lawsuit claimed property damage and water contamination from the soapy residue. The neighbor demanded money for professional pool cleaning services. The judge ruled that soap bubbles aren't pollutants and advised both families to simply avoid each other during bubble time. 47. Free speech takes many forms. Sometimes it's a political rally, sometimes it's art, and sometimes it's a doormat with a rude message facing your neighbor's house. When the Hendersons installed their unwelcome welcome mat, their neighbor wasn't laughing. The lawsuit claimed public obscenity and demanded immediate removal for causing emotional distress. The court ruled the mat was protected speech, but both sides agreed to relocate it to face the street instead. 48. Sleep deprivation makes people do crazy things, like sue their neighbor over a car alarm that wouldn't shut up. Night after night, the piercing wails jolted everyone awake at random hours. The lawsuit claimed severe emotional damages from chronic sleep loss and demanded the car be fixed or removed entirely. The judge required immediate alarm system adjustments and fined the car owner after the third formal noise complaint was filed. 49. Nobody expects to get sued over a pumpkin. But when Jerry's prize gourd somehow ended up in his neighbor's yard, lawyers got involved. The lawsuit claimed dangerous missile launch and cited fears for children's safety in the backyard. Was it thrown in anger or blown by wind? The court threw out the case as a natural accident with no malicious intent. Both neighbors ended up sharing pumpkin pie that Thanksgiving, laughing about the whole mess. 50. The DIY half-pipe seemed like a great idea until the constant banging started driving the neighbors absolutely crazy. Every afternoon brought the sound of skateboards slamming against plywood, wheels rolling back and forth endlessly. The lawsuit claimed excessive noise violations during quiet hours. After heated court debates, they reached a compromise that limited ramp use to daytime only. The kids kept their ramp, but had to wear helmets. 51. Water has a funny way of not respecting property lines, especially when sprinkler timers go rogue. This particular system decided to shower the neighbor's prized rose garden every morning at 6 sharp. The homeowner filed suit claiming property invasion and demanded reimbursement for unwanted irrigation services. The court couldn't find any actual harm in well-watered plants. They simply reprogrammed the sprinkler settings and called it a day. 52. Backyard fire pits create the perfect atmosphere for s'mores and storytelling, but constant smoke clouds tell a different story. The neighbor's child suffered from asthma, making the nightly smoke sessions a serious health concern. Their lawsuit demanded air quality improvements and medical considerations. The judge ordered a thorough medical review before making any decisions. Fire pit use got restricted to weekends only, though smoke complaints continued drifting in. 53. Street basketball brings communities together, except when portable hoops become permanent neighborhood fixtures. The shared street became a daily court, complete with bouncing balls and occasional paint scratches on nearby cars. One frustrated neighbor sued for public nuisance and vehicle damages. The court refused to remove the hoop, but urged players to show more respect. Basketball games now have designated hours and buffer zones. 54. Squirrel feeders might seem harmless until your yard becomes the neighborhood rodent convention center. Multiple mounted feeders attracted dozens of furry visitors, much to the adjacent homeowners' horror. The lawsuit claimed vermin invasion and argued that property values were plummeting due to the constant critter traffic. The judge allowed the feeders but required them to be moved farther from property lines. Those squirrels basically became beloved neighborhood pets. 55. Water balloon fights represent pure summer joy until stray balloons start landing over fences uninvited. The neighbor claimed property trespass and demanded compensation for cleanup efforts. Their lawsuit attempted to ban all outdoor water play activities in the immediate area. The judge dismissed the case with a stern warning about respecting boundaries. The kids quickly found new backyard activities that stayed within their own territory. 56. Weeds don't read property deeds, which became painfully obvious when invasive species spread from one pristine lawn to another. The affected neighbor filed suit for garden contamination and demanded immediate weed killer reimbursement. They argued that years of careful landscaping were being destroyed by botanical invaders. The judge decided to split the herbicide costs between both parties. Afterward, they planted fresh grass seed together and maintained better yard boundaries. 57. Police showed up 3 times that night. The music was so loud it could be heard 6 blocks away, and the bass was literally shaking windows in nearby homes. One neighbor, fed up with months of similar parties, decided to take legal action. They claimed the constant noise had caused severe sleep deprivation, affecting their work performance and mental health. The lawsuit demanded $8,000 in damages for lost wages and medical bills from stress-related visits to their doctor. 58. Water cascades down like a miniature Niagara Falls every time it rains heavily. The gutters hadn't been cleaned in years, and they were completely clogged with leaves, debris, and what looked like an entire ecosystem of plant life. When storms hit, all that water had nowhere to go except straight into the neighbor's prized rose garden. The flooding killed several expensive plants and created a muddy mess that took weeks to clean up properly. 59. The shed was massive, basically a small barn that completely blocked what used to be a beautiful mountain view. The neighbor had spent years enjoying morning coffee while looking at the scenic landscape, and suddenly found themselves staring at brown wooden panels instead. They argued the shed violated height restrictions and destroyed their property value, but city inspectors found everything was built to code. The compromise? Adding a decorative trellis with climbing vines to make it prettier. 60. Apparently, hanging underwear and towels outside ruins the aesthetic appeal of an upscale neighborhood. The Homeowners Association got involved, claiming that visible laundry made the area look like a low-class tenement district. The lawsuit was quickly thrown out when the judge pointed out that air-drying clothes is environmentally responsible and perfectly legal. However, both parties eventually agreed on guidelines about where laundry could be hung to keep it less visible from the street. 61. Winter evenings meant cozy fires, but the smoke kept drifting directly into the neighbor's bedroom window. They claimed it triggered asthma attacks and made their house smell like a campground. Medical records were submitted as evidence showing increased doctor visits during fireplace season. Rather than continue the legal battle, both neighbors decided to upgrade their heating systems. The fireplace owner installed a special chimney cap, while the complainant switched to a gas heating system that didn't require any ventilation concerns. 62. Christmas carols at 9 p.m. might sound charming, but not when you have a newborn baby who finally fell asleep. The caroling group had been making rounds through the neighborhood for weeks, sometimes stopping to sing multiple songs at each house. One exhausted parent snapped and filed a noise complaint demanding monetary compensation for sleep disruption. The judge found the holiday tradition harmless, but suggested the carolers wrap up their performances by 8 p.m. to respect families with small children. 63. The rash covered both arms and required prescription medication to treat properly. The poison ivy had crept under the shared fence and spread across 3 feet of the neighbor's vegetable garden, making it impossible to tend their tomatoes safely. They demanded immediate removal and reimbursement for medical bills, plus compensation for the ruined crops. The judge ordered both neighbors to work together on the cleanup project, wearing protective gear. They spent an awkward Saturday pulling vines while carefully avoiding eye contact with each other. 64. Harold Jenkins thought his neighbor's bright neon green fence was an assault on his eyeballs. Every morning, he'd wake up to what he called visual terrorism right outside his kitchen window. The color was so loud it made traffic cones look subtle. Harold filed a lawsuit claiming the fence caused him severe aesthetic distress and demanded it be repainted immediately. The city inspector arrived expecting to find some obvious code violation. Turns out there's no law against ugly color choices. The fence met all height requirements and sat perfectly on the property line. Harold's lawyer tried arguing that neon green constituted a public nuisance, but the judge wasn't buying it. Property owners can paint their stuff whatever color they want, apparently. After losing in court, Harold kept glaring at that fence every single day. His neighbor eventually got tired of the dirty looks and awkward encounters at the mailbox. 6 months later, the fence quietly turned beige. Sometimes the threat of continued weirdness works better than actual lawsuits. 65. Margaret's mailbox looked like a giant pink flamingo with its mouth open for letters. The Homeowners Association received 17 complaints in 1 week. People claimed it violated community aesthetic standards and made the whole neighborhood look ridiculous. One particularly angry neighbor filed an official lawsuit demanding the flamingo be removed and replaced with something normal and respectable. The Postal Service had zero problems with the design. Mail carriers actually loved it because the house was easy to find. The city zoning department couldn't find any ordinances specifically banning flamingo-shaped mailboxes. Margaret's lawyer pointed out that decorative mailboxes are perfectly legal as long as mail can be delivered properly. The judge ruled the mailbox could stay, but suggested Margaret tone down some of the more exuberant decorations. She removed the fake eyelashes and glittery neck ribbon, but kept the basic flamingo shape. Her neighbors still whisper about it, but at least the lawsuit stopped. 66. When the Hendersons installed their kids' new swing set, they thought they'd followed all the rules. 3 days later, their neighbor, Carol, was knocking on their door with a clipboard full of safety regulations. She claimed the monkey bars were 2 inches too close to the property line and demanded immediate removal. The city inspector who came out couldn't find anything wrong with it. Carol wasn't giving up that easily. She filed a formal complaint citing potential liability issues and non-compliance with residential playground standards. Her main argument was that if a kid fell off the monkey bars, they might land on her prize-winning roses. The Hendersons had to hire a lawyer just to keep their children's playset in their own backyard. After weeks of back-and-forth legal drama, the inspector returned for a final review. Everything checked out perfectly. The playset stayed exactly where it was, and Carol's roses remained untouched by flying children. 67. Dave's car made this awful squeaking sound every time he used the windshield wipers. Unfortunately for his neighbor Linda, Dave worked late shifts and often came home around 2 a.m. during rainy season. The squeaky wipers would wake her up every single night, and she was getting pretty cranky about it. After 2 months of disrupted sleep, Linda decided legal action was necessary. She filed a noise complaint claiming Dave's car violated the city's quiet hours ordinance. Linda even recorded the wiper sounds on her phone as evidence. Her lawsuit demanded Dave park somewhere else or fix his car immediately. Dave couldn't believe someone was actually suing him over windshield wipers, but there he was, hiring a lawyer. The judge listened to Linda's audio evidence and basically laughed the case out of court. Windshield wipers don't count as excessive noise, even squeaky ones. Dave felt bad anyway and switched to softer rubber blades that barely made any sound at all. 68. The ivy climbing up Jerry's fence looked pretty at first, but it had big ambitions. Within 2 years, the aggressive vines had completely covered the shared fence and started creeping onto his neighbor's side. Patricia wasn't thrilled about uninvited plants taking over her property and demanded Jerry remove every single leaf that crossed the boundary line. When Jerry refused to cut back the ivy, Patricia took him to court. She claimed the vines were causing property damage and lowering her home's value. Her lawsuit sought complete removal of all ivy within 10 feet of the property line, plus monetary damages for plant trespass. Jerry argued that ivy was natural and beautiful, not some kind of green menace. The judge ordered both neighbors to trim any vegetation that crossed property lines. Jerry had to cut back his ivy, but Patricia also had to deal with her overgrown hedge that was encroaching on Jerry's driveway. They both ended up planting flowers instead, which somehow caused fewer legal problems. 69. The Kowalski family threw quite the welcome party when they moved into their new house. Food trucks, live music, bouncy castle for the kids. They went all out. Their new neighbor Frank watched the festivities from his window and counted approximately 200 people crammed into what he considered a quiet residential street. He was not pleased with this development. Frank filed a lawsuit claiming the party was too large for the neighborhood and caused him severe emotional trauma. He demanded monetary damages and a court order limiting future gatherings to no more than 10 people. The Kowalskis couldn't believe someone was suing them for being friendly and welcoming to their new community. The judge suggested mediation instead of courtroom drama. Frank explained he wasn't antisocial, just overwhelmed by the sudden chaos. The Kowalskis agreed to keep future parties smaller and give neighbors advance notice. Frank even showed up to their next barbecue, which had exactly 9 guests, 70. Tom loved taking business calls on his back patio, especially during summer evenings. His voice carried pretty well across the quiet neighborhood, and his neighbor Susan could hear every word of his conference calls through her open bedroom window. When Tom started working West Coast hours and taking calls until midnight, Susan had officially had enough of his outdoor office setup. She filed a noise complaint demanding Tom stop conducting business outside after 9 p.m. Her lawsuit claimed his loud phone conversations violated her right to peaceful enjoyment of her property. Susan wanted financial compensation for lost sleep and a court-ordered curfew on Tom's talking schedule. Tom thought the whole thing was ridiculous, but had to defend himself anyway. The judge refused to regulate when someone could talk on their own property. Phone conversations aren't covered under noise ordinances unless they involve amplified sound equipment. Tom felt bad about keeping Susan awake and started taking his evening calls inside the house instead. 71. Water has a funny way of finding trouble. This neighbor left their garden hose running overnight, and guess where all that water went? Straight into the adjacent yard, turning their pristine lawn into a soggy mess. The flooded homeowner wasn't laughing when they filed a lawsuit claiming property damage and water waste. They demanded compensation for their ruined landscaping and wanted a court order banning any future hose use on the property. 72. Someone was stealing pies right off windowsills like something out of a cartoon. The baker was convinced their neighbor was the culprit and took them to court over missing apple and cherry pies. They claimed emotional distress from the thefts and demanded hundreds in compensation. But here's the thing about accusations without proof. They don't hold up in court. The judge dismissed the case immediately, leaving both neighbors feeling pretty awkward about the whole situation. 73. A crying newborn needs quiet. But this neighbor's door had other plans. Every single time they came home, that door would slam shut with a bang that could wake the dead. The exhausted parents next door finally snapped and sued for emotional distress, claiming the constant noise was torture for their sleep-deprived family. The judge suggested installing a soft-close mechanism on the door. Sometimes the simplest solutions work best, even if the anger lingers. 74. 2 inches might not sound like much, but in the world of neighborhood disputes, it's everything. This homeowner built their fence exactly 2 inches higher than local regulations allowed, and their eagle-eyed neighbor wasn't having it. They filed a lawsuit citing code violations and demanding immediate corrections. The court sided with the rules and ordered the fence to be lowered. The fence got fixed, but the bitter feelings between neighbors definitely didn't. 75. Paint jobs can get messy, and this one got expensive fast. While painting their house, overspray from the neighbor's project landed squarely on an expensive car parked next door. The car owner wasn't amused by their vehicle's unexpected new paint job and demanded professional detailing costs. An apology came with a check, and the painter learned to use better protective covers. Sometimes accidents teach the most expensive lessons about being a good neighbor. 76. 4th of July fireworks are fun until your neighbor's dog starts having panic attacks. This backyard pyrotechnics enthusiast went overboard with their celebrations, sending pets and small children running for cover. The worried parents next door filed suit seeking a complete ban on fireworks and damages for their traumatized family. The judge found middle ground, allowing fireworks only on actual holidays. Both sides grudgingly accepted the compromise, though neither seemed particularly happy. 77. Trees are supposed to bring joy, but this one brought nothing but legal headaches. The new homeowner planted a large oak tree just inches from the property line, and their neighbor immediately saw dollar signs in future root damage. They filed a preemptive lawsuit arguing the tree's roots would eventually invade their foundation and plumbing. The judge allowed the tree to stay, but required installation of a root barrier and periodic inspections to prevent future problems. 78. A simple bike ride turned into a courtroom drama when 8-year-old Tommy's bicycle accidentally scratched the neighbor's pristine Honda Civic. What started as a minor scuff mark escalated into a full lawsuit demanding hundreds in paint repair costs. The settlement required an awkward apology letter written in crayon and new parking arrangements to keep cars safely away from playful children. 79. Mrs. Henderson's trash cans became the neighborhood's biggest controversy when she consistently forgot to bring them in after pickup day. Her neighbor claimed the lingering bins created visual blight that dropped property values throughout the entire block. The lawsuit demanded immediate action and monetary damages. But here's the twist. The court found absolutely no legal harm in forgetful garbage habits. The city simply started issuing friendly reminders to everyone. 80. When Jerry installed his new patio heater 3 feet from the shared fence, his neighbor immediately panicked about safety risks and constant humming noises. The complaint escalated into legal action demanding complete removal of the outdoor warming device. The neighbor argued it violated multiple safety codes and disturbed their peaceful evenings. The court allowed the heater to stay, but required Jerry to move it several feet away from the property line for everyone's comfort. 81. Summer fun turned sour when the Johnson family's backyard slip and slide sent streams of soapy water flowing directly into their neighbors' carefully maintained garden beds. The water trespass lawsuit demanded an immediate end to all sliding activities, claiming property damage from the constant flooding. The legal battle centered on whether splashing water constitutes actual trespassing. Ultimately, the judge ordered a proper drainage solution that let the kids keep their slippery summer entertainment while protecting the neighbor's plants. 82. Halloween decorations sparked serious legal trouble when Bob's elaborate haunted house display featured realistic zombies, bloody scenes, and spine-chilling sound effects that ran from dusk until midnight. His neighbor filed suit claiming the terrifying spectacle caused genuine emotional trauma and sleepless nights for the entire family. The case hinged on balancing creative expression with community standards. The judge sided with Halloween freedom, but agreed to shorter display hours that ended before bedtime. 83. The cheerful ice cream truck that parked daily on Maple Street became a noise pollution nightmare for resident Carol Martinez. She filed a lawsuit against both the driver and the city, claiming the repetitive jingle music violated noise ordinances and disturbed her work-from-home schedule. The case explored whether public street vendors have unlimited rights to operate in residential areas. While the judge confirmed the truck's legal right to use public streets, they imposed a shorter sales window to balance business needs with neighborhood peace. 84. Garden decor crossed the line when Frank installed a provocative statue that his conservative neighbor deemed morally offensive and inappropriate for family viewing. The indecency lawsuit demanded immediate removal, claiming the risque artwork violated community standards and corrupted local children. The legal battle tested the limits of artistic expression versus neighborhood sensibilities. The court ruled the statue could remain on private property, but Frank agreed to plant strategic privacy shrubs that blocked the controversial view from neighboring homes. 85. Dave Richardson thought his leaf blower was perfectly legal at 7:45 a.m. His neighbor Janet disagreed, loudly. The city noise ordinance clearly stated 8 a.m. as the earliest acceptable time for power tools. Janet filed a formal complaint, complete with timestamps and decibel readings. Dave received a citation and a fine. Now he waits until exactly 8:01 a.m., setting 3 different alarms to make sure he's compliant. 86. When Max installed a doggy door, he figured his golden retriever would stay in their own yard. Wrong assumption. Buddy discovered the neighbor's vegetable garden was way more interesting than his own boring lawn. Mrs. Chen found her tomatoes destroyed and paw prints everywhere. She sued for trespassing and crop damage. The judge ordered the pet door sealed shut. Buddy now spends his days staring longingly through the window at those forbidden tomatoes. 87. The Henderson family thought their trash bin was fine where it was. Their neighbors thought otherwise when August heat turned it into a stinking mess. The smell drifted across property lines during family barbecues and outdoor gatherings. A lawsuit for creating a public nuisance followed quickly. The judge didn't mess around. He ordered immediate cleaning, deodorizing, and relocation. The city even supplied new odor-resistant bins to prevent future legal battles between residents. 88. Christmas came early to Oak Street when the Patel family strung lights in their massive oak tree. The display was beautiful during the day. At night, it turned their neighbor's bedroom into a disco. Sleep became impossible with twinkling lights flashing through thin curtains. The lawsuit claimed severe sleep disruption and light pollution. The judge compromised with the curfew, lights off by 10 p.m. The Patels still decorate, but now everyone gets some rest. 89. 15-year-old Tyler built the perfect skateboard ramp in his backyard. Every trick echoed through the entire neighborhood like thunder. Morning, noon, and night, the constant grinding and banging drove everyone crazy. Mrs. Foster finally snapped and filed a nuisance lawsuit. The judge didn't ban skateboarding entirely, but imposed strict time limits. Tyler can only practice between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. The ramp got moved to the back corner of their property too. 90. January brought 3 feet of snow and one very determined 8-year-old named Emma. She built an epic snowman right in the middle of the shared driveway. Her neighbor couldn't get his car out for work the next morning. He actually filed a lawsuit for property invasion and obstruction. The judge looked at the case, looked at the weather forecast, and basically laughed. By the time court convened, the snowman had melted completely. Emma learned to build elsewhere. 91. Karen Williams took neighbor disputes to a whole new level of ridiculous. She sued the Johnson family because they didn't wave back enthusiastically enough when she said hello. The lawsuit claimed their unfriendly greetings and cold shoulder treatment caused her emotional distress and anxiety. She demanded financial compensation for therapy sessions. The judge threw out the case immediately, calling it frivolous. Karen still waves aggressively at everyone, but nobody's getting sued for not responding anymore. 92. Racing pigeons sound romantic until they're roosting on your roof at 5 a.m. One neighbor's prize-winning birds decided the house next door made the perfect pit stop. The droppings piled up. The cooing never stopped. What started as gentle complaints escalated into a full lawsuit demanding pigeon relocation and cleanup costs. The city eventually stepped in, creating new registration rules for racing pigeons that nobody saw coming. 93. Window tint seemed like a brilliant idea until it turned into a neighborhood laser show. The reflective coating bounced sunlight directly into the neighbor's kitchen window every morning. Breakfast became impossible. The glare was so intense, it actually heated up their coffee table. A lawsuit claiming dangerous reflected light exposure followed quickly. The tint had to be replaced with something less mirror-like. Sometimes being too shiny backfires spectacularly. 94. Gardens have boundaries for good reasons, but vegetables don't read property surveys. When tomatoes and carrots started growing 2 feet over the property line, the neighbor wasn't amused. The lawsuit claimed outright land theft through unauthorized agricultural expansion. Instead of ripping everything up, they reached an odd compromise. They'd split the garden and share the harvest. The awkward vegetable exchanges that followed were probably more uncomfortable than the original dispute. 95. Water fountains create peaceful ambiance until they're running at 2 a.m. every single night. The constant bubbling and splashing made sleep nearly impossible for the neighbors. They tried earplugs and white noise machines first. Nothing worked against the relentless fountain soundtrack. The lawsuit demanded either removal or reasonable operating hours. A simple timer solved everything, though the relationship never quite recovered. Peace and quiet won over peaceful water sounds. 96. Car repairs at sunrise might save money, but they don't save friendships. The neighbor's weekend mechanic hobby involved power tools, loud music, and colorful language starting at 6 a.m. sharp. The lawsuit cited clear noise ordinance violations and demanded scheduling changes. Nobody disputed the right to fix cars. The timing was the real problem. Moving repair sessions to afternoon satisfied everyone involved and probably improved the quality of the mechanical work too. 97. Pool floats don't respect property lines, especially when the wind picks up during summer storms. One plastic flamingo kept drifting across the fence into the neighbor's perfectly manicured backyard. They claimed property trespass and demanded compensation for having to fish it out repeatedly. The case got dismissed faster than the float could drift, but they did write up official pool float protocols afterward, which became legendary in the neighborhood. 98. Political flags sparked passionate debates, but this one went straight to court instead of the dinner table. The neighbor found the displayed flag personally offensive and demanded immediate removal through legal action. They argued it violated community standards and property values. The judge upheld free speech rights without hesitation. The flag stayed up but got moved to a less prominent spot. Sometimes compromise happens even when the law says it's unnecessary. 99. The snow fort looked innocent enough, just a pile of white stuff shaped into walls along the driveway. But when winter brings out the inner child in adults, things get complicated fast. The neighbor claimed this snowy masterpiece blocked his access to his own property. He wasn't asking nicely either. He went straight to court, demanding immediate removal and compensation for his inconvenience. The lawsuit painted a picture of deliberate obstruction. According to the filing, the fort created a hazardous barrier that prevented normal driveway use. The plaintiff argued that snow structures on shared boundaries violated property rights. His lawyer presented photos showing the fort's strategic placement. They claimed it was built with malicious intent to disrupt daily routines and create neighborhood tension. But here's where it gets interesting. The court took one look at the evidence and scratched their heads. The judge couldn't find any real property damage or genuine access issues. The driveway remained perfectly usable despite the snowy addition. After reviewing local ordinances about temporary structures, the ruling came down firmly. No harm, no foul. The case got tossed faster than a snowball in July, and the fort was demolished anyway when spring arrived. 100. Garage sale signs seemed harmless until someone decided property boundaries didn't matter. The eager seller grabbed a hammer and nails, marching over to the neighbor's beautiful oak tree. Without asking permission or even giving a heads up, they posted bright yellow signs advertising their weekend sale. The tree owner discovered this unauthorized advertising campaign and wasn't amused by the surprise decoration of their prized landscaping. What started as a simple "please take that down" conversation escalated into a full legal battle. The lawsuit cited property damage from the nail holes and trespassing for unauthorized sign placement. The plaintiff demanded compensation for tree treatment and a court order preventing future sign installations. They argued that using someone else's tree as a bulletin board crossed every reasonable boundary of neighborly behavior. The judge listened to both sides and delivered a practical solution that satisfied nobody completely. The ruling established clear guidelines. Only removable signs would be permitted in the future, and property owners must give explicit consent before any posting. The tree recovered from its nail wounds, but the relationship between neighbors never quite healed. Someone eventually posted proper sign etiquette rules on the community website, hoping to prevent future arbor advertising disputes. 101. A pet tortoise named Shelley became the neighborhood's most unlikely legal defendant when she wandered into the wrong garden. This wasn't your typical escaped dog scenario. Tortoises move with the urgency of government bureaucracy, making their trespassing particularly deliberate looking. The garden owner watched in slow-motion horror as Shelley methodically demolished his prized vegetable patch, leaving a trail of chopped lettuce and crushed tomatoes in her prehistoric wake. The lawsuit demanded immediate compensation for crop destruction and future preventative measures. The plaintiff argued that tortoise owners should maintain the same control over their pets as dog owners. Legal documents described Shelley's agricultural rampage in vivid detail, complete with photographs of the devastated garden. The case hinged on whether a tortoise could be held to the same wandering standards as faster, more manageable pets. Then, there's the resolution that nobody saw coming. The judge ruled that proper fencing would solve the problem while allowing Shelley to continue her leisurely neighborhood explorations within legal boundaries. The tortoise owner agreed to install appropriate barriers and compensate for the vegetable casualties. Shelley became an instant celebrity on the block, with kids regularly asking about the famous garden-raiding reptile. Sometimes the best legal outcomes create legends rather than enemies.